Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Game of the Year Roundtable discussion. This time, we are talking about Danganronpa V3. I am Alex O'Neill. I will be your moderator this evening, or morning, or whenever you are listening to this. And today, I am joined by my co-host, Brian Nabeshin Jackson.
Gunta, idiot.
Justin Graffius, the Sigma Omega himself.
On a scale of 1 to 10 Junkos, I give this game a 0 Junko.
Nicole, whose last name I just forgot, so I'm just going to call Nicole
Humphrey.
Oh! All right, let's start out. No, I'm just kidding. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Alex.
And my friend and professional podcaster and yours, Peter Spezia, is here.
Ooh, poo, poo, poo.
See, like, I should have. I feel so underprepared. I have like these notes. And no, this is gonna be good. I will just like right from the get-go, we've been doing these discussions. They'll be going out all week on irrationalpassion.com. This one's gonna have spoilers in it, much like all the other ones, but we're probably gonna roll right into it very quickly because there's a lot to unpack here, so to speak. So we will just give you that one warning now. If you've not played Danganronpa, any of the games, or V3 specifically, you've been warned. So how'd you guys feel about that ending, guys? How do you all feel? And we'll kind of go around the table here because I honestly do want to start with this. How do you all feel about Danganronpa going super meta? And we can start with you, Nicole. The game kind of takes you out of Danganronpa and then back into Danganronpa in a very specific way. And I think it's reasonable to be maybe a little frustrated by it. It works for some games. It doesn't work for others. But Nicole, how did you feel about it?
So, I mean, to answer that, I'm sort of thinking about how I felt about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, kind of mixed feelings about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the meta stuff was great. I actually think it worked well. And it seemed like a natural, progression in terms of, how do you top the first two games, which were, outrageous. But I think that, what the end ended up being, I really enjoyed. I liked it. It was, a very good commentary. And it also kind of, implicates you as the game player because you were kind of maybe very similar to the characters that are in the ending. But that being said, thinking about the first two games and how outrageous the ending was and how there was a quote unquote bad guy at the end that was completely over the top and just brought it to a 10. You didn't have any of that in the ending. And so while the substance was great, the presentation was kind of felt a little flat for me, or fell a little flat for me, if that makes any sense.
That does. Yeah, and I totally get that. I think Tsumugi is more of a surrogate for an antagonist in this game.
Literally, before the ending, I was oh, it kind of sucks that the most lame character is the one that survives.
Agreed.
The one who had no impact throughout all the other cases, oh, well, she has to do something now, right?
Yeah. And then
that's what she has to do. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and that stuff was supposed to make her more interesting. So it was just ah.
I think part of that was definitely intentional. I think Tsumugi's kind of her ultimate ability is to kind of be this surrogate. I think that works or that doesn't work for you, right? But you're not wrong in that she's kind of this odd background character. When you think of the villain or antagonistic characters from the other games, very much removed in the second one, but you have Chikari? God, I'm so bad with Japanese names. You have the protagonist character involved in the cases and everything in the second game, and that kind of helps augment that. How did you feel about where it went, Justin?
From when we text, because it was just before my vacation, and I'm trying to beat it, and I get to the final chapter, and you're like, dude, just stop, wait, just play it all at once. You won't want to sit down.
I don't remember if you did or didn't.
No, I didn't. I had to take a break because it was so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing as Nicole said. I really liked what they did. It blew my mind right away, but like in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, well, so now what should I think about the characters from the first two games and the anime?
Mm-hmm.
Do I still feel that attachment? And then after a while, after I was done beating the game, I'm like, fuck V3. I'm just gonna enjoy all the characters I like. I don't care if they're quote unquote not real anymore. They're real to me.
Damn it.
I was going
Real to me,
yeah, and then, like we were talking with Samugi, throughout the whole game, I don't think I did anything with her to get to know her or anything. She just literally was a background character for me. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad they finally did something. It was cool seeing all those characters again, like just randomly thrown out saying stuff. With I think their same voice actors, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But like everything else with it, like the characters that you're playing as, I liked that more about the ending. Like that's not who they actually are. I thought that was kind of interesting. It kind of made me like their characters more because I know that's not what they are. But by the end, that's clearly what they are because that's what they lead with. Yeah,
and it does a good thing of drawing into question like all of Danganronpa, but I think it also like with the ultimate like the finished ending where the characters are kind of like standing there waiting to leave this place, and they're like, well, what could have happened, and we don't really know. We honestly don't know what the world looks like out there. I think they very much leave it in the player's hands to like you're allowed. They say almost straight up like you're allowed to still like these things and these characters. Like, we didn't want to take that away from you with this game. And I think I wish they had spent a little bit more time on that specifically, but I think they towed the line overall pretty well. Where were you, Peter? Where were you at with how it went meta?
So I think I played it sort of differently than maybe some of you did. I played the game probably over the span of 2 weeks. We were playing on PlayStation TV, but I was playing alongside my wife. And so experiencing the game alongside another person made it very interesting to kind of trade thoughts in real time. And of course, a lot of, what the fucks at the end. I think I really do like, it probably took about 24 hours just to kind of have everything sit and really kind of take it all in. But I do like overall the commentary of, I would say overall, narrative universes and fictional universes and kind of, how much stock do we want to put in them? How much do we want to believe? Because it is all about that suspension of disbelief in the moment that you want to believe it's real in the sense of the game world, but how real is it when we take it outside of that context? When it comes to Samugi, when you started to piece the alibis together, like that's kind of where it all clicked. But I think just coming away from it, like I'm definitely positive about it. I would even say like I would have wanted to have it be more in the discussions of some people's the game of the year discussions when it comes to best narrative. And the problem with that being, of course, as we're even discussing right now, Danganronpa is so spoiler laden. I would have loved to say that, oh yeah, it's got one of the best protagonist switches since Metal Gear Solid 2. It questions, everything about meta narratives and cinematic universes, so to speak, and it really flips the head on a whole bunch of murder mystery tropes. But you can't necessarily say all that. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's a good murder mystery, but you got to play a couple of the others to get a sense of it. And that doesn't sell well to most people. So I think for those of us who get it and buy in, I think it's definitely polarizing. And I heard that word, coming into it, like, it's polarizing, brace yourself for it, but I'm definitely more on the positive end of that spectrum.
Yeah. What about you, Nabeshin? Because we haven't really talked too much about the end of the game. How did you feel about where it went?
I'm more on the positive side as well. I would have to say like overall, as far as like how it ended and the way it ended, being someone who like just got finished talking to Justin and Nicole about the entire series right before that game even came out, and how much it means to us. I liked how it ended. In a totally like separate way, like in a way to like get like the first game again, basically. Because the first game ended in such a way where it's like, oh, like this could just been this game all this could have been like a single game and nothing could continue, and like the way it ended is like almost perfect in a way, and like the way to try to do it is in this one again is kind of like that way as well. Just like this to be a game in it on itself, even though it's quote unquote 53. Just to be like a single solitary game and like it doesn't need something afterwards. Like like a Danganronpa closes off on this, it doesn't make another game. I think this game was like actually really good. If it make another Danganronpa game after this, then like I think it's like a little bit of an issue. That being said though, like yeah, like I just enjoyed just going for that ride and like and just like just like this eating up everything they were giving me as far as like because like I said through that entire game like they just like subverted my expectations like in every beat in every moment of that game. So like doing the biggest like thing that you could possibly do as far as like betraying your expectation by like saying like almost none of this really matters more or less is like was a good twist for me. I will say though like it did like diminish Monokuma for me for like a lot of that game by the end of it. Like just him in general, like literally just him. Like the Cubs, you could say whatever or two and stuff like that, and like but like for some reason, like it felt like Monokuma just got lessened by the end of it, especially like the way he went out at the end. And I was like just kind of like just a thing that just happened. It's like okay,
I was gonna say to that, just sorry. Do you think some of that though with the game, like at least throughout the game until like that really cool part where you actually start to rebut what he says, but like do you think it is because mostly the Monokuma Cubs are the ones that kind of take over everything, like through all the speeches and the trials and stuff? Like yeah, Monokuma shows up and says his stuff once in a while, but I think the Monokubs say more than him. That's what I was wondering if maybe that's what is probably some of that diminishes him a little bit more in this game because they did focus on him more.
Like it's weird because like when I think about like the villain of that game, I think more Monodam than I think of Monokuma in a weird way. The best he dies like halfway through and he comes back, but whatever. But like he had like such a presence for some reason, like him just killing the Cubs, just to do it. Like you had this big emotional moment of like someone just dying, and then like Monodam just out of nowhere just pushing in another Cub so they could die like right in front of him. It's just like it ruins the moment, but it makes it good at the same time. It's so weird. It's so Danganronpa.
Like if you were to distill it into a moment, it's like all like those moments.
Yeah, because like you see like Kurumi like climbing for her life, just like being so desperate. I need to live, and like you're so involved in that moment, and then like she falls into her death, and then like Monodam just like pushes one of the Monokuma kids like right under him. So it's like
I can't tell if I'm supposed to laugh or feel bad for the
yeah, exactly.
Or feel bad for Kurumi. It's like what?
Yeah, so many emotions. But
I think Justin makes a good point though. I mean, because you have like the Rise and Shine Earth sign, like day in, day out, like it's the Mono Cubs you're seeing. And especially when we've tied Monokuma's identity over the past several games to Junko and Ashima, and we're all hoping for Junko to show up, and then she doesn't. I think you're right. It does kind of diminish the Monokuma character quite a bit.
I think,
I was just going to say to that Junko thing, I mean, and this is why I kind of glad I did say it to you guys when we did the Danganronpa cast earlier, because the writer literally said Junko is not in this game. Like that saga is over. This is going to be a new story. So I was kind of glad he said that, because that kind of let me at ease with when the weird meta stuff started happening. I'm like, okay, I'm not expecting the Junko show up. But when Smugi did change to her, I'm like, and then immediately got upset. But yeah, like I think part of that, bringing those characters and losing what those characters actually were, like you were saying with Monokuma, technically being an extension of Junko, and not being the case in this, kind of I think diminishes his character a little bit.
I never do that about what Kodaka said, but at the same time, like he also did say that the V meant victory. So like you can take certain things at his word.
Yeah.
Of course.
He's just a liar. And I'll say this because like you're definitely not wrong about Monokuma. But like he does have his moments, like the whole prologue is Sans Monokuma, and then when he shows up and you hear that music for the first time, it's like this moment. It really sticks out. And I think like the way I think about this game, and is a weird comparison, but I think it's the way a lot of people think about Nier this year, Nier Automata, is like you could kind of flip everything and have a bit of a different perspective because of how it ends, right? If you look at Monokuma as diminished or not as special in this game, that's also kind of works because they've taken the Junko out of Monokuma. They've distilled him into this like TV host, right? Like this TV show host.
Yeah.
Like they've turned him into a literal caricature of himself, which is crazy, because he was a literal caricature of like the antagonist of like the Saw guy, whatever his name is.
Jigsaw.
Yeah, Jigsaw, or like he was just this absurdist interpretation of a sociopath turned into a playful toy robot. And because he is this host, because he is this presence that needs to be entertaining, him being less entertaining is kind of also a commentary on that. And you could say the same thing about like the rule set, right? For example, when you go into the 5th or 6th trial and you revisit the first trial, and it's like, oh, well, the person that killed this person wasn't that person at all, and this is all just bullshit. Because we're doing this for lights, camera, action, and what is this? Nothing matters anymore, right? And that's kind of the realization that those characters go through at the end of like, well, the rules never mattered. Why does this matter? Why do we matter? And it's kind of like clinging on to something to live for. That undermines everything that Danganronpa has been built into. When that happens in the first game, it's very important because Monokuma is led by someone who doesn't want to lose. When it happens in this game, it doesn't matter because this is all just for shits and giggles anyway. So like you could kind of flip things on their head, and I think the way this game leaves you with that kind of perspective is really, really smart, and it says a lot about just Danganronpa, but also video games in general. The way I think of like the meta stuff, and kind of going off of what you were saying, Peter, of like we don't see this a lot in cinematic universes, is like in 12 years when like Hugh Jackman is still Wolverine and the Disney Marvel conglomerate now merged with X-Men Marvel Universe, and then like the villain is Disney because they keep buying companies and making like super ships. It's like, what if like Marvel went that weird? It's like it is turning a mirror to the player and being like, you're the reason that these people are killing each other. And it's like you like this game and we like making this game, but also these people are killing each other. It's like, how does that make you feel? And it's just such a question to leave someone with.
Is anyone
Especially
that, I'm sorry. Is anyone that character as far as like those people, or like who are like, oh, I live for this despair, I love to see this, or I love to see the cases? Like, is anybody that? I'm just curious.
Justin is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like it's funny, like yeah, we can bitch about like the meta and all that stuff, but like I said, I really like everything about this game. Like, of course, it has its problems, but by the end of it, like after thinking about it, yes, I liked everything. Of course, problems, but yeah, like I think about it, I'm like, yeah, they're saying like, oh yeah, these were just like games that you were playing before. How does that make you feel? And it's just like, wait, they were games. Of course they were, because I was playing the games. I like playing the games. So does that mean I'm technically the audience in this right now? Because I was like, that's technically who we are when we play those games. And I think that's the smart thing about it. Clearly, we're playing these games because we like the story and the trials and all that stuff. So when it gets to that end of the game and it's like, oh, the audience is watching this and enjoying all this stuff, technically that's us, the
That's
people that
all
are
of us,
playing the
yeah.
games already.
I mean, the way that I always like convinced myself that I wasn't the like wanted to go into the games and like kill people or whatever is like we play the protagonist and the protagonist never wink wink kills kills someone. And so you're pretty safe until this game came along.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Or you could be any character you want, and that's the crazy part about it.
Yeah. And I also
God,
like, you know, it's very intentional that first case is like, because I went into the first trial not knowing anything for sure, but I'd be like, man, it'd be fucking weird if like you were the killer one of these times.
I totally had that same thought.
It was just a random thought that I had, and I'm like, all right, time to figure out who killed this guy. And then, you know, it really reflects on you. And I remember sitting on this couch, like looking at the TV screen, like, no fucking way. They again, it's all about kind of pointing the mirror of the game back to you and being like, well, you know, what about this?
Like they were so smart in this game. Like it's like like I said, every case except like the second to last one, where like I just didn't know what was happening. I always think it was going one way. It's never that way. I keep repeatedly thinking it's Kaito. It's never Kaito until like the other 10. Until that one time.
Yeah.
But like every time they surprise me, and like it's literally until they say it until I figure it out. It's like, and it's crazy how good that it was for this game in particular. And like I said, all in the other past game is like, you always have like an inkling or you have a good idea, and you're usually right about that. But it's just this one. They were so smart all the way through.
Oh, you're starting to really like this character. Kill. Oh, the person that also killed him is somebody you also were starting to really like. Oh, now they're both gone. What the fuck?
How good or bad at this at like picking the characters to spend time with were you guys? Because like I repeatedly like would always pick the character that was just about to either die or be the killer.
I talked about this with Peter on his spoiler cast. Like I'm the worst. Like first guy, I'm like, I'm gonna hang out with this guy. Oh, he died first. Great. And then it's like, all right, I'll try and spend time with you. Oh, you're dead. Okay. Literally every time, to the point where I'm like, I don't know who to trust. Maki was like the one character where it's like, oh, she actually made it to the end. Thank God.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go here.
I was gonna say, I mean, I started, you know, that first day, like, well, we'll split time between Gonta and Kirumi, and you know, Kirumi didn't last too much longer. But then I went Kokichi, which was very interesting. That was surprisingly interesting. And then Maki, and I was actually working on Tsumugi right at the end. So it's like, well, I mean, there's only so many people left, right? But
Tsumugi was the first one I maxed out. I'm like, oh, that was cool. And then like, didn't think about it.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
By the end, like, were we like, you know, because like we're expecting like, oh, there's a certain amount of like people who would be at the end. Like, was there anyone you thought would make it to the end and didn't make it to the end? Like, obviously, I was thinking Gunta would make it to the end, and obviously that didn't happen. So
I thought, yeah, he was too pure for this world, so something was going to happen. Unfortunately,
oh man,
my beautiful good boy. I kind of expected Tsumugi to make it to the end, but that was maybe because she had such little presence. It was one of those things because you know you really don't know who to trust. I was like, oh, this person with very little presence is just gonna start killing people.
It's usually about like 5 that usually make it to the end, right? Because I'm actually surprised that I get the last 2. It's down to 3, and like if you don't count Kibo. Kibo was the one I always expected to die. Like Kibo was like Kibo's the fucking he's the psychic in the first one, and the mechanic in the second one, where it's like there's a bullseye on your head, like you're going to die, and it's like you survive to the end more or less. So like that's crazy.
He's literally the robot from the second game. It's like they're gonna find some really fucked up way to kill this robot, like they did before, aren't they? I
was very surprised that Himiko made it all the way through, to be honest. I know she had her character redemption, especially when Tenko bit the dust and Angie and she was losing her friends and that kind of character uptick, but like that was something that could easily have been just cut right off, and I'm surprised that someone like her made it all the way through.
I don't know. Himiko for me was like the psychic from the first game of like has no real clue what's going on, but just kind of fumbles her way to the finish line.
But she does know magic for sure.
But I think her growth was really good too for someone who doesn't care about like anything to being someone who like gives a shit about life. Is like, we're gonna make it. We're gonna be to the end. We're gonna try.
And she does.
Try to be the most spirited person out of the whole bunch. That was like a great character growth for her.
I will say I loved her arc. It was really good, and I'm glad that she did survive to like. I mean, she survived, and like there was more of a point to her surviving than maybe the psychic from the first game where he had no like sort of purpose, but like at least at the beginning for me, Himiko was kind of one of the, but I just like, for me, I didn't think she was going to kill anyone for sure. I thought maybe she could die, but I could also see her living. I for sure thought Gunto was going to make it through because like kill this character type off. Like this has to be the game where he survives. And I was like, he's too strong to be killed by anyone. And he's also like, not going to kill anyone. And then
like, that was the bit that I wanted to touch on. Like part of this game, and going off what you were saying, Nabeshin, like it's so clever because it knows you've played Danganronpa before. Like I think like part of this brilliance in the writing is like not only leading the new player, right? Like they you know, kind of like Zelda leads your eyes to certain points where it wants you to see it. Danganronpa V3 knows very specific lines of dialogue or very specific points of evidence or anything to lead new players to, but also to lead the kind of veteran Danganronpa player to. It's like you will notice this, and then we'll lead you here, and you don't even notice it. It's very much you're kind of being pulled on by this rope with like Gonta and his case, because like obviously something is suspect about this VR world. And with Kurumi and her case, and then it's like ropeway, and everyone seems to know what a ropeway is.
I'm glad you bring up the VR world though. Like that really, you know, it definitely accentuates it when, you know, you're seeing all of the characters like they're dead, their funerals, and then you're seeing visions of they're jacked in, they're plugged in somewhere, and we're all thinking, you know, Danganronpa 2, like virtual world, that's where they all are. So where do they take you? Virtual world. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. It's just very smart in how, so like Gonta, like you said, is very much a character that you would think would make it, or like, you know, the Sakura trope from the first game. It's like, well, she, you know, killed herself. This was very much trying to, I think like it's in a similar way, it is taking what you understand about Danganronpa and using it against you. In like the, like maybe if you had gotten to know him, you would have known he was left-handed, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart in front of you, and the world is burning, and everything is bad, and nothing will ever be happy again.
Oh my god! I remember when they were like, "Oh yeah, I hold my chopsticks in the right hand," and I was like, "What if there's someone who's left-handed?"
Oh well, time to go to this virtual world. It's just like you're both so along for the ride, and also like unsuspecting. I think like to undersell it how smart this game is, because like I think of like the fourth case where Angie dies, or the third case?
Third, yeah.
I think it's third, yeah.
Where like you're doing the seance, and I'm like, somebody's
Of course.
Yeah.
This is a
Who's gonna kill who here?
But at the same time, like they've never had a delayed killing, like in the middle of the investigation. Like, yeah,
that was really good.
Yeah,
that was really good.
When you think about the double killing in the first game, it's like minutes apart. In this, it's like an hour apart, and you're setting all this stuff up, and you're like, I guess we're just doing this. And you know, the guy, I can never remember his name. Creepy.
Korakio.
Kyo's like setting everything up, and you're like, you're too obvious though. So like, you know, playing Danganronpa, it's kind of like trying to lead you away from suspecting him, but of course it's, you know, it's him. And then the twist there is that he did both the killings. And it's very good in how it misleads you.
Thinking about Korikio for just a second, his weird twist after his death, where it's the twisted, my sister is with me, and I go after female sacrifices to be friends with my sister. You talk about the identities that these characters invented for themselves. I mean, there is a certain sense of tragedy to a certain some of them. Like, this is the identity that this person picked for himself. Or you look back to Kirumi, who she picked the sense of, I'm secretly the prime minister.
Yeah.
Yes.
These are identities that they've invented for themselves, and for them to lose that in a second, how distorted is your worldview that this is what you've selected for yourself, but that it's just lost in a second. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and even to that point, though, too, I don't know if it's what they exactly chose, because throughout the whole game, you find out that, oh, I just have to hit this button, and now you're getting this memory. Congratulations.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So who knows what their actual ideal thing was? That might have been just like to get the emotions running for everybody. Which, actually, now thinking about it, that's probably exactly why they did that.
Fair point. Yeah.
But I liked the idea that these are actually things that people chose, right? Because they have audition videos, right? And so I mean, in the real world, when you have a contest, trying to be on a reality TV, or not that I have this experience, but I can imagine that when people are auditioning, they're trying to be creative and outside the box, right? And so for me to have those characters that have these outrageous, ludicrous backstories, it's I can see that totally being something that someone would pitch, because if you're looking for views and something sensational, of course TV people are going to be oh yeah, that's a really interesting storyline. We never thought about that. Bring that in and add to the fun and excitement of Danganronpa.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another one of those things that kind of flips when you finish the game, of so what's his face? The antagonist, the ultimate supreme leader again.
Kokichi.
Dude,
can we talk about Kokichi and how literally he's he's the definition of the best worst character. He is so good.
I liked Kokichi.
He is so good though.
So good, yeah.
That one scene where it's just his whole demeanor changes. I was getting freaked out.
Yeah.
That image of him. I'm
purple aura and all that.
This guy is really fucked up. I don't know if I want to work with him anymore, kind of thing. It was working. I was getting freaked out.
But I was gonna say, and then we can kind of talk about Kokichi a bit more, is when you have the perspective that these personas were created by these characters to some extent for these characters, for them to become, and none of it was real, in the moment, it doesn't undermine the feelings that you have for these characters. Kokichi always lies and he always antagonizes, but the realization that he was doing it as more of a playful gift, or a playful, not gift, joke, in the context of a very unplayful world, is some of the most unsettling shit that you will ever feel. Because in the grand scheme of things, he never killed anyone, he never hurt anyone, but he always kind of prodded everything in whichever direction he wanted to go. And then it's oh, he's the ultimate supreme leader of a bunch of kid pranksters. And he likes to lie and make fun of people. And it's oh, okay, he's a child and he's in this murder world. Great. This is a great feeling for all of us. But yeah, Kokichi is so great because when you have that perspective, it both makes sense and it just hurts you to your core. It's honestly similar to the Gonta situation, which makes that whole thing hurt even more.
Oh man,
where this pure kind of character didn't kind of understand the impact of their actions. I think to an extent he was kind of ignorant to how serious everything was. But maybe he wasn't as ignorant as he let on, or as his backstory let on, and it leaves Kokichi is always this hanging question in that game, and kind of his motivations will always be unknown, and it's especially evident when you see his or what's Kaito has his like journal of like these are the different things that I would say to this dumb bullshit. And it's like this is really extensive. And it's like yeah, because he like knows his bit so well. But yeah, how did you guys feel about Kokichi? All at once, please.
Okay. Well, like, so when you were saying all these things, all these amazing things about Kokichi, I was thinking, like, yeah, like, that's basically my arc with Kokichi was like, I see you, you're kind of a jerk, but I like that. I'm into it. I really, really like you. And then chapter 4 happened with Gunta, and then I was like, okay, continue on with this romance, Kokichi, because you really done bad. But then like he's such a great character that like I forget, like as you're like sitting there talking about like all of Kokichi's like amazing points, it's like yeah, true, but he also got Gunta killed. Like he also murdered someone, and I'm like
fucking laughed it off like
nothing mattered. And
like
then,
that, even that case where it's like, oh, I want to play along. I want to be fun with this. Oh, you're like you don't want to play with me? Fine, I'm gonna spoil. Like Gunta's the killer. It's like this flat out say it like that. It's like you just took away all my fun, so I'm just gonna spoil it for you.
And you're like,
but like
no fucking way, sir.
I don't believe you.
But I still left that game being like he's one of my favorite characters. Like I just can't hate him, even though like I mean he's great. I like also I love the 5th trial. Because for me, like I think Kokichi was as close to getting to Junko as we could, and I love absurd, off the wall characters, and for me that's what the 5th trial was just like straight up bonkers.
Yeah,
and I loved it.
Yeah, and like I think the thing I love about Kokichi's character in this game the most is. The thing, maybe the criticism I would lodge the most against Danganronpa 2 is that it is very much retreading a lot of the footsteps of the first game, where, like, if you think about the antagonizing character in this game, Kokichi, it's just like a whole new flavor, right? It's a whole new kind of thing in a very clever way. And again, this is, like, taking it out of the context of the ending, just, like, when you're in it, when you're living that game, and it's all very real to you, because it is real in the moment, It is like there's such a different dynamic between like this antagonizing character, because you think about the guy, the luckiest kid from Danganronpa 2, and how he antagonizes
Nagito.
And you like fucking hate him, and he is just the worst. Like there's no redemption for him. Like he's just a terrible. I hate him. And, like, you know, he pans out to be like, you know, like all of you, just the worst. But like there are so many layers to peel out of Kokichi that, and he brings so many moments of like just like kind of laughing. Like anytime he antagonizes the Ultimate Inventor is just like really funny.
Oh my god,
and terrible at the same time. And you know he's terrible, but he's such a good presence in that game that it doesn't sully any of the conversations. It doesn't make them more. It enhances them in a really good way.
Yeah, he has his terrible moments where he does bad things, but like then he has those good bad moments where he is making fun of Miu. Or in the 2nd trial, oh, everybody, Gonta wants to show you something, and then they all get swarmed by bugs, and then he gets out of there, but then he gets to just do and gets caught by the bugs eventually, and it's just like, all right, this is some funny stuff, even though you're doing some horrible shit. It's still hilarious, just some of the stuff he does. And like we were saying with the class trial of saying, oh, Gonta did it. Like that's just a little subtle, just Gonta did it and done. That just how he says everything. It's just very well done.
Yeah.
I will say though, I had a difficult time, disassociating Kokichi with roles of his voice actor, Derek Stephen Prince, pardon. Is particularly the Digimon Emperor in season 2 of Digimon.
Really?
Oh wow!
Just
I
like
didn't even realize
a
that.
lot of his mannerisms and the things he said, like it took a while to kind of break that. But then in Kokichi's sort of friendship, path, I suppose, there's one moment where he drops like it's time to duel, and it wasn't the first moment where several referential sort of lines were dropped, and it makes it interesting when you think that oh well, if everything's fictional, it kind of just ties into overall maybe in our world sort of thing. If it's so far flung in the future, maybe it's some sort of callback to the past. I don't know, but I really found Kokichi to be very interesting, and especially when he's trying to do all these sort of life and death games with you there. But I just couldn't help bringing in thoughts of like our world and different ties there.
I didn't put that together, and now that's going to ruin Digimon for me.
Either that or it's going to ruin Danganronpa V3. You're going to always think, like, oh, he's going to throw a dark ring or dark spiral around everything.
I'm removed enough from Digimon at this point. Like, I don't think about Digimon Season 2 on a regular basis. But now if I go back, it's over.
That being said, I'm still dropping knee-hees in everyday life, so...
So, like, I think it's worth noting, outside of Kokichi, like, who are all of your favorite characters in the game?
I just want to give a quick shout out to Kaito. Even though like Kaito is like literally the carbon copy of Kamina from Gurren Lagann, like he is that character.
Voice and all.
Yeah, Kyle Herbert again, pretty much saying believe in me, you believe in you, whoever his motto was. I can't remember what it is, but it's like it's something along those lines. And it's just like he does a great job just inspiring you when there's like when you're feeling the loss of hope and like at that moment stuff like that. He is that character. He is the eccentric character who just like tries to do things even though it doesn't even make sense. He just tries. Kaito was like really good as far as that. And not like Mew for like whatever weird reason. She's just funny, even though she's like completely gross out and just literally just gross. But like I enjoyed her every time she's on screen. He made me laugh like every time.
I do want to like it's worth noting like Mew. It was cool to see because it's a Japanese anime game. There has to be like a really perverted character. It was nice to see the gender role on that reversed.
Yes.
It's just, like it's a little thing, but I think like Mew is a very clever like commentary on some of the like self-awareness that Danganronpa has of like we kind of know we have a character that's just a creep the whole time. Especially like when you walk in, I don't know if this happened to everybody, but you walk in on her fixing up Kibo. It's real uncomfortable scene. And it's like, all right, so there's that.
Do you want me to ruin Mew for you guys?
Sure. I think you've told me this, Justin.
But this real quick, and this one more character I want to shout out is Kaede. Kaede was definitely like Chiaki 2.0.
Yes.
It's like the same shit from Danganronpa 2, a character I really enjoy, really love, and like they
ripped him out
in the worst way. In the worst way.
And then you're walking into the studios playing Claire de Lune, and I'm crying. Like, I never thought I'd cry in a Danganronpa game. But yeah, it was like I told Peter this on his spoiler cast, but like I was playing The Evil Within, the original one, at the same time, which also uses Claire de Lune in a very emotional way. And it's like, what is with video games and Claire de Lune right now? Yeah, it's very good. Justin, who is your favorite?
I was gonna say I don't remember if this is what I told you. I don't even remember what I told you anymore, Alex, about her. But to ruin Mew as the voice actor. Just like you said about Ken being Kokichi, this does not make sense. It makes me think weird thoughts now. Mew's voice actor is TK in Digimon.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I thought you were
going to... I can't unsee TK doing that shit now.
Yeah.
I'm imagining TK making seductive shit, saying seductive shit to people now. It's bad.
See, I thought you were going to go the Wendy Lee route and then Haruhi Suzumiya.
That too. But
like that's very similar. I mean, if we're ruining roles, I mean, let's go to Kirumi Tojo, voiced by Kira Buckland.
That's what I was going to look
also
up.
Voices 2B in Nier Automata. Looks a whole lot like 2B from Nier Automata. I mean, the maid dress, the short white hair. And actually, Kirumi was one of my favorite characters. But Maki was probably up there for me the most. I mean, there's a whole lot of depth there in trying to play it very stoic and try to get through it and not use the skills at all to try to hide that talent. So I really found her story very interesting.
Yeah, Maki was very good. What about you, Nicole?
So I was thinking like Ryan Taro, even though we didn't get like, he just seemed really, really interesting, and I actually like, he was like one of the first people that I was like, oh, let me like spend time with you, and I like was just so sad. I felt like we were so robbed because he like seemed so interesting, and like I think he still kind of comes into play at the end.
Yeah.
So it'd be Rantaro, and then also Tenko. I really liked what they did with her, and like how like she had the whole like friendship with Himiko, and how it was like basically on like the downs, but like she didn't give up, and she like kind of like encouraged Himiko to like kind of come out of her shell. And like if she also was just absurd the entire time when she was like obviously like super feministy and be like degenerate male.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see her like evolve and like and she was like really starting to come into her own, and then for her to like bite the bullet, very unfortunate. But hopefully she has lots more friends now.
I don't know if we want to leave it with that one. But yeah, that's really good. I mean, Rantaro is really a standout for me, and we're going to talk about him next. But yeah, for me, it was Kaede was kind of the standout. I really like the protagonist as well.
Suichi.
I like, because I feel like the veil of Suichi's role is like the thinnest, right? I think he like somewhere in there he knows he's not some fucking ultimate detective. And like that's part of it. That's kind of like what you're leaning into.
I think Suichi really shines at the end when he just pretty much says "fuck you" to everybody. Like, I don't want hope. I don't want despair. I just want to live.
Yeah.
Screw you all.
And it's kind of like, you know, if he hadn't have done that, like you wouldn't have found a way out of it, really. Because he was right. Like, and I think he was just a normal kid, right? Like that was his big thing. When you see, like, you know, he was coming in, and I think all of them were to some extent just normal kids. But you know, he just was like, man, fuck all this. Like, I don't want to do any of this, one way or the other. And Rantaro is a very curious case, like, because, you know, he is like this lingering mystery. If you think about if like the ultimate detective had died in the first case of Danganronpa 1, like this weird looming shadow over the entire game of like, who was she, and you know, what did she do? What was her purpose? What was her role? What was her ultimate talent? If that was essentially what Rantaro was in this, he dies immediately, and you're left to question. And as the layers peel back, he becomes essentially the conveyor of the meta, in a weird way. Like, he is the ultimate survivor. And what does that mean? It means his fucking room is a bunch of Danganronpa bullshit puzzles. like what? And it's like, oh, and horse A and something B is like written over the fucking in the school in hidden spots, and it's like, this is the solution to my dumb maze trick vault puzzle. It's like, what is this? And I like that, because if you walk in that room the first time, you're like, he's the ultimate serial killer.
Yeah.
And then
technically,
like, yeah,
but
yeah, in a weird way, he kind of is the ultimate serial killer. But then it's flipped on its head of like, this is what the ultimate survivor is. Like, they're the person that is like given up on everything and kind of clinged to just survival, like the person that has to live through this game. And especially in the bigger context of, you know, you win and you lose.
Congrats.
You're going back in. It's really, it's a clever and unsettling feeling. But how did you all feel about Rantaro? Like, how does that make you feel about the game of Danganronpa in a more grand scheme of it?
Well, first of all, I was expecting him to come back in some capacity. I think most of us probably were. I mean, especially when you start toying with the idea of digital world, or you start talking about the all the seances and stuff, the occult. Like, is he going to come back in some way and, you know, flip the game on its head or ruin it in some way? I mean, I was definitely expecting that, but yeah, when you put it in, you know, the TV show reality context, like, his role makes a whole lot of sense. And yeah, you try to look back at the previous ones. Alex, I think we were making the joke on my show where it's just we look at the 22 Jump Street ending, the credits there, and like all the different sequels that could have played out, and you kind of imagine like how does the lineage carry on. So I mean, it's not necessarily just Rantaro. You're right. Like he's a kind of a stand-in for like those that came before in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And because like you think about Rantaro implies that one person survived at one point. Like it also it brings this kind of heavy load of like it implies that he killed somebody presumably.
Oh, sure.
There's the chance that he didn't kill someone. It got down to 2. And the other person was the murderer, but like I don't even know how a class trial like that would play out. But
they said that 2 people would survive at the end.
True.
But whatever happened to that second person, I don't even know if they talk about that.
Wouldn't you assume that's Samugi though? More or less.
Yeah, but she said she's like the host, so we don't know if she was playing the game or she's been the host. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I probably have to play it again.
They kind of leave that open-ended to some extent. But yeah, Justin, how do you feel about Rantaro? Would you be the Rantaro of Danganronpa V3?
No, I'd probably be the Junko, which would be Samugi in this one. Yeah, I'd totally be the mastermind, because clearly Junko's my favorite character, so I'd want to be that character.
Yeah.
And I think about it, I'm like, wait, so technically would that mean I'm the host? I don't know. But no,
you could be a great cosplayer.
I could. Here, let me be a bomb. Hold on.
Oh my god, he's a bomb.
Oh no.
For podcast listeners, he just held up a bomb pillow from Final Fantasy.
So comfortable. But Rantaro, I think what makes him in the first 2 games, you had that mystery character, but you kind of got more of their story throughout the whole thing. Whereas this, he's kind of left, gone right away. It makes you think. And when you finally get to his door and it's so long into it, you're like, well, what could it be? Like, what makes this so special that it was going to take this long to get to it? And then finally finding out, I was kind of like, my gears were turning, thinking like, what if he survived? Like, what happens if he would have actually made it to that end, opened his door? What would have he said? What would have he done? Like, what in general probably would have happened? I can't even figure out what might happen. Danganronpa is so weird. I couldn't even know what they could even do for that story.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the kind of stuff I thought of with him, like in general. It was a
That
big, giant what if.
That would have been so spooky if you opened his lab for the first time and there he is right there. Oh, God.
I was kind of like worried that might happen because it would scare the shit out of me. Nicole, Nabeshin, did you guys have anything you want to add for this?
No, they pretty much covered everything I was thinking about Rantaro.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it because like up until this, like I was thinking about Danganronpa, obviously the kind of meta twist at the end, but when we keep peeling it back, it's very much their roles, like their personas, were to some extent chosen by them. And that they were all untrue. Like, think about Kyo, his like history was to some extent chosen by him, of like anthropologist that has a dead sister that he kills women to send to. It's like, all right,
maybe he really liked his sister.
Yeah, maybe he just never had a sister. He was a weird guy.
It could be.
So, but yeah, like I'll say like for Rantaro, and it's obviously everything in this game is very intentional. Rantaro's presence is the only time where I've wanted like a route B for Danganronpa, where you could just play the whole game, but someone dies different first, and like you get to see a different version of this where Rantaro makes it to the end.
Maybe that's gonna be the next game. It's gonna be that meta where it's a choose your own adventure, and it's actually a game now.
I think like we were kind of talking, and this is kind of the point I wanted to end on, of like where does Danganronpa go from here? And like you said, Nabeshin, if it's just this again, like that kind of undermines what Danganronpa is, or like maybe this trilogy kind of lives independent and we kind of start fresh, but you'd have to really change the core idea there. so you don't affect one another too much. But a natural evolution of Danganronpa is making it more dynamic, like having different pathways, having different options happen, make it so it's not just the same story each time. That would take like probably way too much work and way too many lines of dialogue to be read. And they play around with that a little bit here with the whole lie system in the trials, where you can kind of lie your way past certain options, which just serve as essentially alternate routes to get to the same solution. But expanding on that and making it so different people will do different things depending on the actions and decisions you make would be very cool. But I'm just curious where, and we'll start with you, Nabeshin, where could Danganronpa go from here, or do you think it should just end now?
I kind of feel like it should just end, honestly. They wrapped up the actual lore stuff really nicely with the anime, I felt, and like as far as like the main characters that you care about. And then like obviously with V3, they did like something that's so meta and so left field that's like I think that's good for what that is, but it's only good for what it is if they don't make another one. And it's kind of like a Metal Gear Solid 4 type of thing, or something along those lines, where it's like, you know, you could tell that's the ending, and that's where it should just like stay off from there right there. You could do a Peace Walker, but like when you do a 5, it kind of fucks it all up. Which it kind of did more or less. But yeah, that's generally how I feel. Like if they make another one, you know, like I'll play it, but like it'll be like kind of that'll probably be like the first time I'll be like, oh man, come on now. Like not that you don't need new ideas, or like not that I don't like the series, but like then it really does feel like I'm one of those characters. It's just like, oh, I'm ready for the despair, I'm ready for the hope. And it's like, no. Like I like when something ends like definitively. And I think this did it pretty good.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Nabeshin. Like if there is another game with how this one ended, like we were saying, what can it be? Like, what can the story be to make you come back in now? Because no matter what it's going to be, now you're going to think, well, is it now? It's just another fake TV show again. Because that's what they made it out to be. So they would have to do that again, technically. Or, like I was saying, like a choose your own adventure, like make it just as meta as it can possibly be, knowing that it's a game. And like like Nabeshin said as well, like I don't know if I would want another game. Like if they announce another one, I might be like, okay, maybe I'll play it. But I think the Danganronpa series really hinges on the characters. So even if they make another one in some way, it's would need to be like the characters take center stage always. Mm-hmm.
But also the mystery as well, though.
Mystery as well, but I think they can, if they go with another game, no matter what they do again, like with that mystery, maybe it might not be a murder mystery. Maybe they might do something else. But either way, I think like the heart of it is, yeah, like you were saying, half of it's murder, the murder mystery, and half of it's the characters. And
strong murder half, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you do a third-person action game, and then
yeah, you know, where you're shooting like this weird gun where you like hit Monokumas. I don't know. We'll call it Ultra Despair Girls. So yeah, I think the characters is what will sell the next game, if that's the way they go. And actually, I just remembered, I don't think I mentioned my favorites, but I think Nabeshin could probably name both of them.
Shit. Nabeshin, who are they? Who are Justin's favorite characters?
Tsumuri and Miu? I don't know.
No, surprisingly not, actually. Miu was great. Like, again, like that was the closest Junko we could have gotten, like, to seeing what she would have been like throughout the whole thing.
Rocky.
But no,
Not Rocky?
I guess we'll stop playing the guessing game.
Sorry.
Sorry, Ryoma. I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I don't know why you went straight to me. Like, oh, of course, Ryoma. Duh.
So yeah, Ryoma's the guy I liked, and Kirimi was the girl, especially with the twist with her. But
Mm-hmm.
Ryoma, as soon as like, of course, second trial happens, and I'm like, all right, his weird mystery, I want to know, so I'm gonna hang out with him.
It's every time, man.
The first talk you have with him, like the actual like event talk that you have with him,
You're like, he's the Prince of Tennis.
he literally is. He the story. Literally, the story is, oh, where did you come from? Oh, I was a bad kid. I went to school, and all my seniors were really high-end tennis players. One of them had the skill that when they hit the ball over, it would hit the ground and roll back to the net. And I'm like, he's talking about fucking Tezuka. He's literally Ryoma from Prince of Tennis. And I started flipping out. And immediately I'm like, I need to know more. Oh, he got eaten by piranhas. Cool. Great. Thanks. All right. I'm just going to go cry now. And then finding out that Kirumi killed him made it even worse. That type of shitty for me.
Oh, true, man. Like, that's like the double whammy.
Yep, I couldn't have been any worse.
His voice too is like the one where like when he talks, like you're paying attention. Like he's got the really deep voice for the short stature. Gosh, reminded me of, and I'm blanking on the name, the breeder from 2 with all the hamsters. A similar thing where it's just
Gundam
like
Tanaka.
Yeah, Gundam.
Yeah.
He talks. You're paying attention to whatever he says.
Yeah.
I mean, I was paying attention to the chipmunk and like the bird and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Hell yeah. Nicole, what about you? Where do you feel this series goes for you?
So I'm kind of in agreement with Justin and Option. I think that like I don't need any more Danganronpa, but I do think that like to this game's credit, right? Like I'm playing this game and I've played the 2 games before. I've played the 3 games before I've watched the anime, and I'm still kind of left guessing. And to me, that shows that this is like an incredible amount of thought that has been put into this game. And so like, while I think that this would be a good ending, if they did it and if they did another one, I would play that game because I would absolutely play that game, and I trust them to try to top this.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they can actually do it is a question, but I think it might be in the kind of maybe like having you jump around between characters, so it's more of a mystery as to maybe you did kill someone this time, or like, you know, kind of getting more openness in the narrative, which like would be incredibly difficult. But then if they could also do that and also combine in a really good story that kind of meshes into like the foundation that they had in this one, or even maybe what they do is like a sort of prequel where they go into one of the like prior rounds, or we hear about Rantaro's story. And like, I think we've said enough about him that like, if they want to delve into prior characters, I don't think we would be completely opposed to that. It's just they have to kind of really bring it.
I really want to know what happened in Danganronpa 22. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah, but they could do something like that, maybe.
Well, you see, Channing Tatum disguised himself as a man named Jeff.
My name's Jeff.
All right, Peter, round us out. Where do you want this series to go?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a lot of the same points. And for me, I was someone who caught up on the anime right before. Like I didn't watch it in real time. I didn't see any of the back and forth arcs. I just watched them kind of each sequentially. But it really made me care about the overall world that they were building. And even as someone who also played Ultra Despair Girls, and you have the tie-in with Junko Enoshima, it's like, oh, she's still involved. She's still in it. To have that world be built up and then to tear it down, I think it's very, poignant that like I think it would be a fine ending point, and I would not be opposed for it to end. That being said, you do have plenty of stories to tell because, as you said, it is all about the characters. It's all about the murder mystery, and it really does come down to if they want to try to top themselves. I think the idea of alternating the narrative perspectives would be very interesting, very difficult to do. But, if any team could do it, it would be that team. I think we're all kind of in agreement on the same point. Like we all are talking about this because we really care about that fictional universe and how it ends up being all fictional. But we wanted to end up in the right place. And so if, in a way, it kind of ties into something like, The Last of Us. If there's a story to tell, then tell the story. But if not, leave it as it is.
Yeah. And I think, like, to kind of throw my final point here and close it off, I don't want to ever underestimate what the Danganronpa team can do. And I think a lot of what this left me with was that feeling of confidence in them. And I had it going in there. Like, when they announced Danganronpa V3, I was like, all right, they're making a third one. I'm cool. I'm getting it. I don't need to know anything about it. Like, I went into the game. I didn't even know there was a female protagonist. Of course. That mattered.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. JK, by the way.
I'm talking about the hair flip being just the dumbest nod to the hardcore Danganronpa fan. Like, that's just the silliest thing.
Yeah, like, okay, let me take off my hat. He has it! Of course he was the protagonist the whole time. Yeah, it was a thing of, like, as soon as I knew they were making a third one, I felt like they were going to make a third one because, I played the second, and they do kind of leave it hanging there. But of course the third goes in its own direction. I went in blind. I talked with Nabeshin about it. Like, I didn't even know who some of the characters looked like going into it. I'd seen, like, the announcement trailer, and that was really it. And the ride just kind of took me for it. I will say, if Cameron Abbott is out there listening, him and I had, like, a conversation before I played it, and he was like, yeah, I hear it gets really meta, and I don't know how I feel about it. So, like, I literally went into the ending kind of expecting it to go meta, and it did take a little bit away from it for me. So fuck you, Cameron. But, like, that didn't ruin it for me. Like, if they had just kind of introduced this meta and then, like, ended the game kind of like how Metal Gear Solid 5 does it a little bit, it would have definitely juked the punch a bit. But they kind of live in that world for like a good 3.5 hours. So yeah, I think I have faith that if they come back into Danganronpa the universe or the format even, they're doing it because they've got something they want to say. And they had a lot to say in this game, more to actually say, like, there's a commentary on hope and despair and kind of the dynamics between those in those first two stories. But this was more about artist's intent and how people take that from the artist and turn it into something new and something sometimes toxic, which is a feeling that happens a lot now when you look at, like, memes being turned into, like, stances or symbols of terrible regimes or even worse ideologies. Like, there is an intent and there is an audience, and they're becoming more and more separated, and it's hard to kind of figure out where the ownership ends and where the audience's ownership begins, especially with video games.
You look at the Star Wars fandom right now. I mean, Jesus.
Like, Star Wars and, like, it is becoming more and more. I don't want to say it's an issue because I think that's it can be a really good and positive thing. But, like, Danganronpa's niche, like, the five of us are big fans of it, but, like, I would say there's not billions of us out there, or millions would be a more appropriate word. There is definitely a lot of us though, and to have, like, this kind of really poignant message at the end of this game is really something special. And I think if the writers feel like they have something, not necessarily to top it, but to complement it, I am absolutely there day one just to see what they have to say. But thank you guys so much for joining me for this conversation. We have more.
Do you remember that feeling when? Because I was saying this and I got cut off for a second. My internet went out. Do you remember that feeling when Himiko was doing her magic show, and, like, you just know something's gonna happen, and like, it's just that feeling you get. It's just like, oh, what's gonna happen? Yeah. What's gonna happen? Who's it gonna be? Who's gonna be? And he's like, look at everybody.
You're looking, like, around the room.
Like, is this the last time I'm gonna see you? And then it was fucking the one I did not expect that to happen, and it's like,
because they were making him such out to be a mystery, and it's like, all right, they're gonna flesh him out more to get that mystery solved. Oh, no, never mind. I guess not.
It's the only time you actually see someone get killed in front of you, even though technically he was already dead.
Mm-hmm.
It is. That's a moment,
It is something special with Danganronpa, like the here it comes sort of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very much like the punishment time. There is like when you are sliding open that door to the library the first time, you're like, here it comes. Or when you are going back into the garage at the end, and you just see the blood everywhere, you're like, this is it. There is always that feeling, and it never hurts any less, I think. Like they've distilled it to a science in a very
And those
real way.
punishments this time were brutal.
Yeah, especially
They were all like very upsetting.
yeah.
Except for Kaito's.
Good for Kaito, yeah.
Well, that was upsetting for a different reason.
Yeah.
I was crying afterwards.
Yeah,
Actually,
like
kind
it's
of
just like
went
an
out
emotional
and
roller coaster.
go-go.
Like, oh, he got to space. Oh, he's dead. It's but yeah, I also want to shout out Monokuma that one time for jumping into that trial because he didn't know what the fuck happened.
That was great. I was kind of glad. Like you should. It's weird. Like you always expect him. Like he feels like he should be a part of the trials, and then when he actually did show up, it was a good moment to actually be able to rebuke what he said.
Yeah.
I will say, I hope the Monokuma kids never come back.
No, they lived and died in this game, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I hope their theme song comes back in some capacity.
Oh,
Though.
yeah.
I kinda like that one.
Fuck, I forgot about that.
Monokuma kids. I tried to like the Monokuma kids so badly when it was like, oh, they're basically Power Rangers, but it was like, no, I still can't.
I will become the one who destroys. It's like, what is this song?
Rise and shine or shine.
Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you to everyone who joined us along for all these Game of the Year Roundtable conversations. There's a bunch to listen out there. If you liked Danganronpa and you liked another game from this year, maybe we talked about it, Wolfenstein 2, Nier Automata, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There's a bunch to listen to, and I think they all have the same kind of feeling of this, of like just getting into it and talking how we felt about the game. Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked this and you want to hear more from these great people, you should check the description for this either on irrationalpassions.com, on YouTube, or on our podcast feed, and listen to them more. There's tons of Game of the Year stuff over on irrationalpassions.com. So go check that out.
If you like Danganronpa, I had a good discussion with me and Justin and Nicole. Just talking about the series in general. We talked about this months ago, but like just look up Fresh Off the Dome and Danganronpa, and like you hear like almost a 2-hour discussion of us just like talking about our favorite characters, about the anime, and about like the other two games and how it meant for us and how it impacted us.
Yeah, I'll try and throw that in the website post for this so that people can check it out. But yeah, it's on the YouTubes. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you, Nabeshin. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, Peter, for joining me. I have been your host, Alex O'Neill, and thank you for listening.